Hi, Maria Sevilla with Sevilla Bodyworks. We've been working on skill building. So today's video, I'm going to focus on the upper body and arm balancing. Things like planks or forearm arm balances, anything where we're using our hands on the mat and distributing weight and using our upper body to perform these exercises. So let's get started. All right, first I'm going to have you get into a Quarterpipe position. So quarterpipe position, hands are underneath the shoulders, knees are underneath the hips. This is a place where we often start from, and it's really important to find your placement and your alignment before you go into any more difficult exercises. So first of all, hands are right underneath the shoulders, knees are right underneath the hips. And how do we balance here? So with the hand, it's the index finger, the pinky finger, and then the outside edge forms a triangle like this. So you want to distribute weight evenly through the palm, but at the same time, it's almost like you want to cup a little bit too. So you want to think about the palm coming up. It's almost like you're gripping the mat. And this allows for a co-contraction through the lower arm bone. The elbow crease, you don't want to turn it completely towards your hand, and you don't want to turn it completely inward because you can see that drifts the shoulder up here. But you want to quarter turn it so that you're lining it up with your, kind of like with your index finger. Here, I'm aiming it towards my index finger here. And then you can see how that rotates downward into the wrist. I'm still co-contracting, I'm pushing down but pulling up so that I have a strong lower arm. The upper arm is rotating back this way. So we have this one rotating downward, and we have the upper arm rotating upward. We want to pull up and back, pulling the shoulder blade along the back so it's not drifting up by our ear. If it drifts up by the ear, you're going to be engaging your upper traps and your pec minor. This puts a lot of tension into the neck, and we want to stay away from the neck. So keeping that shoulder blade down the back, and then because I'm pushing, you need to think about pulling that shoulder blade not only down the back, but also wrapping it in. So this will engage your obliques and your serrators, and you'll start to get into your core muscles here. Just doing this alone, you can start to feel those muscles working. So I would practice that and get into that position and feel really comfortable with it before you move into more challenging exercises. But let's move into some shoulder girdle movement first. Doing shoulder girdle movement, I'm just going to take my hips back, so this is like moving into child's pose. This allows for the shoulder blade to rotate upward and then back, because when we do push-ups or different exercises where we're stabilizing through the upper body and the shoulder blade needs to glide and move along the back. So this is just opening all that up for you before we move forward. The other thing is, as I'm coming back, I'm still kind of gripping the floor, and the lower arm bone is lifting up. So I'm not dropping down, I'm pulling upward. This allows for this to open up through the side. I'm still wrapping in here. So I don't want to push out, I want to pull in and then come back. So I wanted to also mention, I also do massage, and I have a lot of pushing down in my wrists, so my right side is a little compromised, so these exercises are really helpful for me as well. And then we're going to come forward. So let's start with bird dog. So bird dog is an arm balance position, and it's also a great core exercise. I'm going to take my right arm straight out, and then my left leg straight out. So now I'm having to balance through my left side. As I reach out, I want to think about the hand pushing towards the wall and the foot pushing in the opposite direction. So as long as you're reaching, you can feel the core connecting. And then I'm pushing down here, I'm cupping with this palm, I'm rotating downward, and I'm coming up on this side. And I'm going to hold that for about 10 counts or so. And then when I'm reaching out, I'm rotating upward through that shoulder, pulling my ribs in, finding that core connection, and then coming down. And then we're going to do the other side. So you want to be careful that you don't sink, and this is what happens on my right side because I'm a little bit more compromised over here. You don't sink back into your wrist. You need to bring that upper arm bone, or excuse me, the lower arm bone a little bit more forward, cupping here, and then drawing back through the shoulder and coming here. I'm thinking about wrapping in, pushing into the mat, pulling up as well, and then finding that opposition. And then coming down. After I've done a couple each side, I can sink back into my child's pose again. And then coming back. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to move into some planks and some push-ups. So planks is more of an isometric contraction. You're balancing through your upper body and you're holding it. And the push-up is when you have to start moving that shoulder girdle again. So one is stabilizing, one is more mobilizing. We're going to do both. Okay, so the first one is going to be more stabilizing. And planks, you know, they're not everybody's favorite, but you know, it's a great core exercise and it's really key to getting stronger and being effective in those arm balances. You can do a couple different things here. You can just do kind of a kneeling plank, or you can do a full plank. So I'm going to show you both. A kneeling plank would be just keeping your knees down. You want to take your knees a little bit further out. And this is great for anybody who can't, you know, get their toes to curl under like that. So just having your knees down and then pushing your hips down and forward. Now you want to make sure that you don't sink your body weight. So anytime we're using our arms to support our body, you have to push. So the idea is to push through the lower arms, distribute the weight through each side and through the hips and the legs. So I'm kind of squeezing my legs in the opposite direction. I'm pulling my core up. My head is in line with my spine. And I'm focusing on keeping my shoulders away from my ears, but then also pulling upward as well with my body. So I'm pushing with my hands and I'm pulling upward with my body. So there's the kneeling plank. Okay, so if you want to move into the full arm, the full body plank, I'm going to take it a little bit further forward so I have some room here. Same thing, I'm going to go into this position with the arms. I'm going to take one foot out, tucking the toe under, and then the other foot out. What happens is I see this a lot. People just kind of sink in their shoulders and all of their weight is forward. It feels horrible on my shoulders and my upper traps. And what you want to do, push again. Bring those legs out, squeeze your legs. So squeeze your legs towards your feet, push into your hands, pull up with your body, and then you can just kind of hold that for as long as you feel like you want to. I have my clients hold for 10 counts to start. Sometimes I count slow, sometimes I count fast, but working up to, you know, 30-minute, whatever it is. Some people have those plank competitions, so however long you want to do something like that. So start with 10 counts and then move up from that. Things to consider when we do push-ups and planks. Anybody who has shoulder girdle issues, there's also a weight issue. If you're a heavy person, it's going to be harder. If you're a lighter person, it's going to be easier. So other things, weakness through the core, weakness through the legs, all of those are factors. So please consider those things before you move into practicing these. Okay, so let's move into the push-up. Everybody's favorite. All right, so push-up. Now we've gone from the stabilizing position of the shoulders. Now we're going to go into moving the shoulder girdle a little bit more. It's called a push-up for a reason because the whole entire time you're pushing. And the shoulder blade needs to move on the back. The shoulder blade comes and abducts on the downward portion and it adducts, I think I said adducts on the downward portion and then it abducts on the upward portion. What does that look like? That's just the shoulder blades coming towards each other and the shoulder blades moving away from each other. And if you kind of get that in your head and remember that, it makes it a little bit easier. The other thing that's really important is the spine has to stay lifted and levitated the whole time. So let's try that. Let's do the kneeling one first. So if you've already done your plank and you want to go into kneeling, you're going to come here like this. I have weakness on my right side, so I have to really think a little bit more about holding that core in and getting that push on that right side a little bit more. I tend to want to sink. So I'm pushing here, I'm pulling my belly up, and it's almost like I'm moving into, we like to call it like kind of the Japanese bridge where I'm kind of holding my body up, lengthening out through the crown of the head. So I'm already pushing here. Then when I bend my elbows, I have to keep thinking about pushing and then coming up. I don't want to sink. As soon as I sink, I'm losing that core connection and I'm compromising the shoulder girdle. I'm getting into my neck. The other thing I want to do is really squeeze down through the legs. And then, whew, definitely feeling that. I did quite a few of these already today, so feels like if it looks like I peter out, then that's why. But so that's what that looks like kneeling. You can also do it against a wall, and you can also do it against a bench or something like this. So you can have your legs out and your hands up against a bench, moving downward a little bit more into a plank position. So you don't have to start right at that plank. If you don't want to start at kneeling, you want to move into lower, then you can do that as well, just against a bench or wall. Okay, so let's do the full version. All right, so hands are down, legs are out. And I feel that when you move into this, my biggest challenge is getting weight through the body distributed evenly. So when I take my feet out and I tuck my toe under, I'm squeezing the glutes, squeezing the legs, and pushing down into my feet. So this brings a little bit of that weight away from my chest, and then I can really feel my core. And I'm pushing here. Shoulder blades need to abduct, chest needs to stay lifted, and I'm pushing down through the lower pecs, engaging my abs, pulling my body up the whole time. And then I can come down and rest. So I'm not going down really that far. You don't have to move completely down into the mat and touch your chest to the mat. You know, whatever works for you. Remember, you're working on the skill, you're building it up. It's so much more important to do it well and properly and build that strength before you go into a larger range of motion. Okay, so those are push-ups and planks and bird dogs. So let's talk about forearm planks and our triceps. Another version is to come down onto our forearms. So our forearms, a little bit different, also weight distribution, also pushing, but now I'm not completely extended with my arms. So my forearms are down, my hands are down, I still want to do index finger, pinky, and all that, and I have to push down through my forearms. So there's a little bit more real estate on the mat now. My collarbones are wide, and I have to draw upward here still. I'm going to come back, do that shoulder girdle movement again, which kind of feels really nice at this point. And I'm trying not to drop my chest. I'm trying to stay lifted. So this is actually, believe it or not, warming my triceps up. I like to call this tricky triceps because you don't really think it's a tricep exercise, but in fact it is. And then I can also start to kind of do little tricep push-ups here. So my knees are just underneath my hips, and this works those triceps and warms them up, which feels really good. And the whole time I'm pushing, I'm really using my hands, and then I come back down. All right, 10, 20 of those, how many you want to do. You'll really feel your triceps, you're gonna be engaging your core. So now let's move into our forearm plank. So now with the hands down here, we can do knees or we can do feet. Let's do knees first. Pushing down through the forearms, opening collarbones wide. Again, knitting those ribs in, feeling that wrapping sensation. If you think about coming lower, like lower pec fibers, rather than coming up here, then you won't compromise the shoulder. You won't get into that shoulder drifting up as much. So forearms and knees. So knees out, hips up, shoulders wide, belly up and in. And I'm really, you can see how important it is to lift, push and lift, and keep the neck nice and long. And you can hold that for as long as you want. 10 counts, 20 working up to a minute. And then you can rest to come back. All right, let's take it to the feet. So one foot out, and then the other foot out, and then holding that there. And I'm kind of wide with my hands. I like to push and broaden, and I think about cupping and holding the floor or the mat, and then pulling up. pushing down through the feet, squeezing the legs, and holding that for as long as you want to. Okay, so there's a few advanced things that we can do here that are kind of take it up a little bit notch and are just kind of fun. Depends on what you consider fun, but I think they're fun. Taking these down and then bringing the knees up and off. So balancing in this position, and then from here you can tuck your tail, drop your head, and lift your hips up. The stronger I am, the more mobility I have through the shoulder girdle and also strength through my core, the more I can walk those feet in. And then come back down. That is a great exercise to build the strength through the arms, the shoulder girdle, and then eventually that would work into some of those more advanced exercises like the yoga, forearm handstand, and things like that. I would normally do those up against a wall to start off with, but that's for another video. So try these exercises, work on that shoulder stability. Remember, there are a lot of other factors to consider, so just take your time and get stronger through the shoulder girdle and you'll have a little bit more fun with those exercises. Thanks a lot.